another episode of On Hand Cooking. Today we're gonna make the best, easiest homemade tomato soup you've ever had with just a few ingredients. We'll throw in some cauliflower to really healthen things up. Healthen? And on the side, we're gonna serve some crispy smashed potatoes. You ready? Let's do it. And all we need to make this delicious healthy soup are, of course, some tomatoes. I'm using canned today, but you could definitely use fresh, and we would just roast those in the oven first. Overachievers. You'll also need your cooking oil, some broth or some bouillon and some water, of course, some salt and pepper. And then for our vegetables, we'll do a mirepoix of celery, red onion, and carrots. I like to use my saddest carrots in my soup because they turn into happy carrots once they're in your soup. Now, I've never done this before, but I'm going to add a whole head of roasted cauliflower as well. And that's totally optional. And finally, if you have any old cheese rinds, well, hang on to those because they make a perfect addition to your tomato soup. For our crispy smashed potatoes, of course, we'll need some potatoes. I'm using these small little gold organic potatoes, but really any small potato will do. Just make sure whatever potatoes you use, they are organic. Potatoes are treated with nasty pesticides. Unless you like nasty pesticides. Right, let's get started. First, we'll prepare the cauliflower. Let's start by lining a cookie sheet, in this case, a cauliflower sheet, parchment paper. We'll start by chopping up the entire head of cauliflower into small florets like this. Then just spread your cauliflower haphazardly on a cookie sheet, cauliflower sheet, like this. Then we'll just give it a little drizzle with an oil of your choice. I'm, of course, using organic sunflower oil. Then we'll just top it with some salt and pepper, or pepper and salt, and pop it into your 425-degree oven. Like that. We'll let that cauliflower roast until it gets nice and golden brown because that will give our soup lots of delicious flavor. In the meantime, let's get smashing some potatoes. But first, we gotta get these babies steaming. Ooh, I can hear that my water's come to a boil, so let's go ahead and throw in those potatoes. Like this. Then we'll replace the lid. Like that. Now, because these potatoes are whole and some of them are pretty big, they'll take a while to steam. So while that's going on, let's get started on our soup. Yay. Let's start by chopping some onions. Now, I used red onion, but you could use yellow or white. We don't discriminate in the On Hand Kitchen. I'm going to save all these unused onion parts for your bone broth later in the week. I like to keep mine in a container in the refrigerator or the freezer, and then it's ready to throw into your bone broth whenever you're making bone broth or veggie broth. Next up, let's chop up those sad carrots. And I love when I'm cooking to use a set of nesting bowls. These nesting bowls just help to keep everything neat and organized when you're cooking. One for each item I'm chopping, and one to discard the leftovers that I'll be using to make my bone broth. Episode 1. Okay, my 4 or 5 carrots are roughly chopped. I chose to use rainbow, but you can use any color carrot you want. Now let's move on to our celery. We'll continue with just a nice rough chop here. Feel free to throw the greens in. With our vegetables all chopped, we'll move over to the stove and warm up a nice big pot. When the pot is nice and hot, we'll add some oil. And when our pot's nice and hot, throw in the onion. When your onions start to get a little golden and caramelized, it's time to add the carrots and the celery too. We'll give that all a good mix, and in the meantime, let's check those potatoes and the cauliflower. We got a lot going on today. Just give these potatoes a little poke with a fork. And when they're nice and tender, you know they're ready for smashing. And that's perfect timing because our cauliflower is nice and golden too. So we'll pull it out of the oven and toss it right in with our other vegetables. And with this pan nice and hot and oily from the cauliflower, let's just reuse it, including the parchment, and throw these potatoes on there. Then we'll arrange them somewhat evenly and give them a little drizzle with oil. Then we'll just take a glass and use the bottom to gently smash those potatoes. And don't worry if these little potatoes get so messy when you smash them. It's in the On Hand Kitchen. We love messy. So when your potatoes are good and smashed, we'll give them another drizzle with oil and sprinkle them generously with some salt and pepper. You could also add some other seasonings too if you like smoked paprika or garlic powder, and get them back into that hot oven for roasting. Since our potatoes are already cooked and we just want to crisp them, we're actually going to change the setting to broiled this time and keep a very close eye on those potatoes. I'm watching you, potatoes. Now, let's get back to that soup. Great in here. The vegetables are nice and soft, so we'll just add our tomatoes, 2 cans, and whatever broth you're choosing to use. I'm using bone broth, but certainly you could use vegetable or even beef broth. And if you don't have either of those, you can certainly use some bouillon. And I love this better than bouillon, organic vegetable broth. Next up, we'll just add our salt and pepper. And give things a nice big stir. Look at all those veggies. This is gonna be delicious. It is every time. If you're lucky, I'm so lucky, and you happen to have some cheese rinds laying around. Like I said earlier, these add such delicious flavor to your soups. Just carefully peel off any wax backing they might have. That would not add delicious flavor to your soups. And drop them in now with your vegetables and broth. And now we'll just replace the lid and let those vegetables get nice and soft. After about 10 minutes, when those vegetables have had a chance to get nice and soft, we'll just ladle them into our blender. Now an immersion blender would be awesome here, but since you know who I'm in love with and my heart only belongs to the Vitamix, I'm choosing to use it. We'll have to work in batches here, so just put in maybe about 3/4 of the way full. And shoot, don't forget to pull out those cheese rinds if you happen to put them in. Make sure you get a good amount of the vegetables as well as the broth. Let's get this baby pureed.
You'll want to let this go for a minute or two, and you'll need to place that first batch into a different bowl. Don't you wonder why I always try to talk when the Vitamix is on?
When it's good and creamy, we'll just pour it into a separate bowl. And when you've run your final batch through the blender, we'll just pour it back in the pot to warm up a little bit before serving. Just look at this soup. It's warm, creamy, and delicious. Since it's almost serving time, let's get those potatoes finished. Those potatoes have gotten nice and golden and crispy. We'll pull them out of the oven and give them all just a little flip. And don't worry if your little potatoes fall apart when you flip them, because when they break up, that's when things get nice and crispy inside. We'll just drizzle with a little more oil and season the other side with a little more salt. Pop these right back into your oven for their final go-round. Remember when you're broiling to keep a close eye on things. When those potatoes are good and crispy on both sides, we'll just transfer them to a platter and sprinkle them with some fresh dill, if you have it, on hand. And then I think we know what time it is. Tasting time! I'm serving ours with some cashew yogurt, episode 3. This would also be delicious with some sour cream. And I'm also topping ours with some hemp seeds for some nutty deliciousness. Let's give it a try. You knew it was gonna be delicious. This soup is creamy. It tastes like it's got cream in it. There's no cream in it. It's delicious. You can taste the celery and the tomatoes. Can't taste the cauliflower, but this soup is full of flavor and packed with nutrients. Now let's try the potatoes. In fact, I'm gonna dip my soup in the potatoes. Reverse that. So delicious. That potato is crispy on the outside, it's creamy on the inside, tastes delicious with the soup, the perfect accompaniment, which some of you may argue is grilled cheese, but I've been eating too much gluten and dairy lately. Thanks for another great episode, you guys. Please remember to subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. I love having you join me. Take care until we see each other for another great episode.